my boss had a post-it note on the table and it said, "Stop." And I thought, wow, I'm about to get fired. And then I did. It was the day before my birthday. And
happy birthday,
yeah,
David.
thanks very much. Quite surreal. The following day he came to me with a big smile. "It's your birthday. Here's a present." I thought, really? Is this really happening?
David, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, really excited to speak to you. A little bit scared, a little bit scared because I'm like, my pitch is shit, that kind of thing. But
I have that effect on people.
Yeah,
actually.
I bet.
I'm really kind, I can tell you.
Cool, amazing. I forgot how I came across your profile. I know that I reached out on Twitter.
Yeah, and
That's
it might be because David Arnu is a friend of yours, right?
That's
and
it.
I sort of know David.
Yeah.
I'm a massive admirer of the Growth Tribe, so maybe that was how we got in
That must have been
contact.
it. Yeah, because Dennis and David, both are childhood friends of mine,
Right.
who both came on the show as well.
Yeah.
And that must be it. But David, we're here today to talk about many things. One of them is the power of pitching, and actually can people learn how to pitch and that kind of stuff. But before I do that, so first of all, welcome to London.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the UK.
Yes.
So you're originally from the UK?
Yes, I made my personal Brexit a long time ago. I left in 1998.
Got it.
And
you were in the corporate world, because I was looking a little bit at your profile, and
Yes.
Canon.
Yeah, Canon was a great place to work, I must say.
Yeah.
Great company. I worked there for 16 years. I went from being a marketing assistant to a country director, everything in between, and but left 10 years ago.
Wow. There's a picture of you black and white in your book, Pitch to Win. Apparently, supposedly because the tie was a little bit too out there to put in color, but...
Yeah, I put that picture in most of my workshops because partly it makes me smile, and it does seem to make other people smile. So, that was the beginning.
Cool. And so, because you started as a marketing, assistant, and then you kind of went off all to country director, managing teams.
Yes.
And then your role was being moved back to the UK, and you had this kind of crossroad where you thought, actually, that's a bit of a step back for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I moved to Amsterdam to see something different. I like difference. I like people who are different. I like cultures that are different.
Yeah.
And I felt like, you're just going to go back exactly like you say. It's a step backwards. And it was a bit different to the reasons why I went to Amsterdam. And also, I was looking to make a change in my personal and professional life.
Yeah.
I'd been writing down in my goals for some months.
Yeah.
I get fired and get a 6-month payoff.
Yeah.
And then it happened.
Yeah.
And I can't explain that, but that has happened sometimes. I've written stuff down enough that it happened.
Yeah.
And it was a great opportunity.
So where's your accent from? Because I was listening to a bunch of your talks, and it's such a
bit
weird
mixed.
mix.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes there's some Aussie, sometimes it's like there's a weird mix.
It's basically England and Amsterdam. I remember moving to Amsterdam many years ago. There was a guy there who had been there 8 years, but I couldn't believe he was English because he sounded Dutch. But my accent is a bit all over the place.
Yeah, do you speak Dutch now? Or?
I do, reasonably fluently. I don't coach in Dutch, but I can speak Dutch.
Could you give a talk in Dutch?
People would laugh a lot.
That could be a good effect as well. But so that when that happened, the severance package came in. Did you have any idea of what you were going to do next?
No, a few days before I left, I had a farewell party. I'd been there for many years. I knew a lot of people, so 150 people were coming. And somebody said to me, well, you might need to tell them what you're going to do. And I thought, okay, what am I going to do? Because I just worked out the end, not the beginning.
Yeah.
So I just thought, okay, but let's just tell them 3 things. By chance, I'm a big fan of the Power of 3. And I told them I was going to travel the world, write a book about Amsterdam, and start a coaching company. And I had no plan for any of these things.
Yeah.
And but that was the starting point. And I just got started with some of those things.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And you ended up at some point along the road ending up in pitching. Yes. Right. And at what point did you realize that, this is a thing. This is a thing that people need. This is a thing that's actually people struggle with. I mean, what's your first memory? Actually, this question, what was your first memory of seeing a compelling pitch?
My first very compelling pitch was at Startup Bootcamp, and it's an accelerator in Amsterdam. Yep. David went through that.
Yeah, the two do.
I saw a totally different way to present. I saw people, instead of having half an hour, they had a few minutes. Instead of unwrapping it like an onion, unpeeling piece by piece, they told you what the issue was right up front, where you're going, what they're achieving, what they're changing. And that really made a difference. So there were a few of those very first teams. Also, I must say, David's pitch was amazing. There was a guy also from a company called Presentane, which I really saw as a kind of a benchmark. And I saw a totally different way to.
So was that the first year you actually came across Startup Bootcamp, the year that Dennis and David were at?
Yeah, I started on the program after them. So at the end of 2013, they were in the previous program. And actually, I pitched myself as a mentor.
Yeah.
And I went to
read
Patrick
that story,
and I pitched at this thing they had for Pitch for Coffee, and it was meant for startups, but I really wanted to be a mentor, but I had really no credentials.
Sure.
And so I just went there, and I had a book called 3-Minute Presentation. And Patrick had just written a book, so I thought, well, maybe he'll sympathize. And he did. And he gave me a chance to do it. And he said, okay, if the startups like it, then you can carry on. So I started working with startups in that program and just did a lot of random Post-it note sessions and started to get to feel, okay, what is this thing all about? What is pitching? And learned it was very different from that corporate life.
And how do you think your corporate life set you up for that opportunity to actually come in and go, wow, this is what I've learned for the last 16 years. This is quite different. And yet what did you find was translatable from the corporate world to the startup world?
Well, I think if I think about setting up a business, there's certain things that are really useful, like very simple things like managing financials. You know, every
P&L
6 months there was a budget process. So I've gone through weekends of Excel files 32 times. And many, many, many times. Every 6 months, big process. So that's one thing. Secondly, I've done a lot of presentations. So communicating with people and just getting face-to-face with people, sharing what you're doing, and trying to build a little bit of a story in the company. You know, I worked on a couple of big projects. And when you're making a lot of change, people feel really threatened by it, especially in big companies, because people are holding on to what they've got.
And your fear kicks in.
Absolutely. And so the politics is something you have to slalom through. And I found that being a good presenter was one of the ways to get me through. So I think I had that as a skill that I'd acquired through doing it many, many, many times. Not really getting much training, but just learning and talking to colleagues, actually. And I think just a bit of, the third thing is really that experience of a bit of knowledge of having gone through a process of knowing what it takes to sell a lot, for example. You know, budgets of 400 million at one stage, marketing budgets of 10 million. Equally, I also learned as a startup and as an entrepreneur, totally the opposite. How do you make stuff with no money? Because I hadn't, I ran out of my payment package and then it was all gone.
So you were you're in your 40s, you're single. So you could take, there's almost like, okay, this is the moment now. If there was a moment in my life to take a complete 180, now would be it.
Yeah, so I think I've met people who do two different things. There's the 10-degree change and there's the 180. I took the 180. The 10-degree change is go out on your own and do what you've been doing. So I met somebody
like
who
a consultant almost. And
I met somebody who worked in HR, and they made a 10-degree change, but that really made a difference for them. They were extremely happy working for themselves, doing similar things with similar clients, but they had a bit more of their own their own governance, their own direction, and as you put it, I think they had their own purpose.
Cool.
But I made a 180. I really felt like I was going in a wrong direction in my life. And I chose to write a book about Amsterdam. So I did the easy thing. I traveled around the world. And while I was traveling, I came up with the second thing, which was an idea for writing a book about Amsterdam, and then spent a year doing that. And then ran out of money. And about 5 minutes after I published it, and but it was a great experience because I met my wife. And through writing that book, I made a decision to talk to my wife about having kids. And that of course changed everything. Those two big things changed my whole life. And
I just take a little left turn here because obviously we talked about this bit a little bit offline before starting off. I'm also a dad. Like, how has become a dad changed you?
Well, it's a very clear purpose to what I'm doing, and it's much less selfish. When I worked in Canon, when I became a director, I remember calling my dad and saying, "They've made me a director." I was so proud and so happy, but it was really a very selfish thing with being able to pass a bit of joy to my family, but it was 99% selfish. I felt proud. By the way, then the work started. Then I realized what it actually meant. So I don't recommend anybody to become a director, but that's something else. But now it's definitely you think about ongoing support for your kids,
Yeah.
and also the balance. I spend a lot of time working, but I work more than I did in the corporate world. But I stop at 5 o'clock. We pick up the kids. We have dinner with them. We put them to bed. We go through all the trials and tribulations of all of that, which you might be familiar with, and then I open the computer at 8 o'clock and get started, and the night shift starts, and that's. That's a way of working which you can debate. Is that healthy? Is it good? Probably not what I want to do for the rest of my life. But it does mean I'm able to have that time for my kids. If there's something at 3 o'clock in the afternoon where my daughter is playing at the local music lesson, I'm there. Yeah. And I fill in that time in the evenings, and I'm very willing to do that, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the things that was being asked recently, because I did two things at the same time. I started a business and I became a dad, pretty much at the same time. So two big babies that kind of happened, right? Yeah. And I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, I made less money than I used to do in my previous job, but my freedom of time became something that I realized was such a rich commodity. Yeah. If, for example, again, like this morning I was talking about, there's a problem and I need to do the nursery run, then that's okay. I can do that. Yeah. If I need to go and do a meeting with the people taking care of it, then I can do that. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it's about being flexible and creating what's right for you. So I love how you said, it may not be the help. Does it work for you?
It does work.
There you go.
It does work. And, I say it's debatable because maybe some people would think, 100%. Well, why would you want to work in the evenings? You're working for yourself. Why do you do that? Oh. And that's really fun. That's a classic. Yeah. Because you got all the time in the world. Yeah. And, but I just think if I look back on the time when I worked in Canon, I met one colleague who said his child was 3 months old and he'd never seen him with his eyes open. And you think, how can that be? Yeah. Now, I think companies are seeing things very differently. They're changing, but it is tiny incremental changes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think balance of life, family life and balancing the money, the work, the play, play has really gone down, except play with my kids.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. Yes, I was interviewed on a podcast and we talked about the reality of entrepreneurship because it's a topic I often get asked about because of my TEDx talk that I gave. And I think there's such a misconception around when you become your own boss, you have all the time in the world, freedom. You're just going to go to the gym, eat smoothies and drink smoothies or you can whatever. But actually, you're always on. It's very hard. I don't know how, actually, this is a total selfish question. How do you manage to switch on and off and be present in each role that you have? For example, being with your kid, and for those hours that you're with your kids, and then when you're working. Because the one thing that I'm challenging is, actually, I don't think I'm that present when I'm playing with my daughter. And I don't think I'm that present at work because I'm feeling I should be playing with How do you personally do that?
I think honestly, I'm at varying levels. I think there are times when I'm totally there and at times when I'm a bit distracted. Yeah. And probably it's related to when things are going better and when things are not going so well. True. If there's something bothering me, it's on my mind. Mm-hmm. But I would say 80+%, I think I'm pretty present. Yeah. And I do think those decisions about when am I going to work and when I'm not, and the confidence, I'm also with a very supportive partner. Yeah. And it's a little known secret, but she's also my business partner. Yeah. So my wife.
Amazing.
And so we're in this together. Yeah. And if I'm working in the evening, then that's okay, and it's not brilliant.
It's for a common purpose. It's also
exactly. And also we're both writers, so we both experience what it's like to want your own time to work on something and understand that. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty rare. I'm extremely lucky to have found that partner.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. My partner, we're in very similar fields. I think we often, when we go and interact in different groups and do different kind of workshops and hear the people talk about the relationships and the issues that they have around having partners who don't understand their line of work, I think that's very hard and challenging. So when you find someone who actually gets it and they can come home and say, oh, I wrote this piece or this thing come out and can celebrate with you genuinely because they feel the joy, I think that's a gift.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're both very fortunate on that. Yeah. So you're you pitch, you're now becoming a mentor, you're realizing that these startups have got a very different style of having to present. Yeah. At what point do you go, this could be a business? Like I could do this. Like this could become the coaching, like the threes that you put out. Yeah. This could become the coaching business I want to create.
Well, I think it took a little while. When I started, the period after leaving Canon, where I had a very stable corporate career, every couple of years, next promotion and opportunity to do something more. in the following 4 years, I did 5 different jobs and I was fired twice.
Yeah.
And really not reorganized. It was really, here's the door, please use it.
Wow.
So it was really a shock to the system.
Yeah.
I'd never experienced that. One job after 5.5 months, really sitting down, and my boss had a Post-it note on the table and it said, stop. And I thought, wow, I'm about to get fired. And then I did.
Wow.
It was the day before my birthday. And
happy birthday,
yeah,
David.
thanks very much. Quite surreal. The following day he came to me with a big smile. And it's your birthday. Here's a present. I thought, really? Is this really happening? Anyway, so I'd really had a bit of checkered period.
Yeah.
And so I sat down thinking, what do? I've just had my first child. My daughter was born 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a big mortgage as a legacy from a previous life. And, I wrote down, okay, what are the ways to pay the bills? I had 7 Post-it notes, and this was one of them. But I knew...
I love a fellow man who loves a Post-it.
Yeah, I'm addicted to the things. But I must say, I knew that was my passion because I loved presentation. I was really fascinated by how it made a difference to people's careers, how they felt. And I thought this could be a thing. But when I got connected with Startup Bootcamp, that combination of presentation, coaching, and then doing this under time pressure, I don't know why, but this just really triggered me.
Yeah, it was like intersections.
Yeah. And that time pressure is probably the biggest reason why I have a business. Because if you have 3 hours, you can explain anything.
Yeah.
But if you have 3 minutes, it is really difficult to know what to say.
Yeah.
And I realized that these guys really, they were doing it almost every day, but they needed help.
Sure.
And I seemed to be able to identify what worked and what didn't. And so I analyzed a lot of startup pitches, but I was also incredibly lucky because the founder of Startup Bootcamp, one of the founders, Patrick DeZayo, he's
the guy with the long hair.
Yeah. And he is an amazing person, full energy, extremely driven person who is giving so much of himself. It's incredible. And he did weekly meetings with the teams in those days. Now he's globe-trotting and has a lot of managing directors of the program, but then he was very active. And I sat there because I didn't have any customers.
Sure.
I had really almost no work. So I was doing everything for free. And I sat with the startups in the weekly meetings. And for 20 minutes, he would look at their pitch script and go through it with a flamethrower. And he would drive through, you need to change this. When you say this, what do you mean? Okay, what you've got to say is this, and da-da-da. And they would go out totally baffled. And I would make sense of it.
Yeah.
And I listened to the kind of things. What is he telling them?
Yeah.
When he says, say this, what does he actually mean?
Yeah.
And I would try to
It's like he's jumping to the end bit, but they need to have that path, that bridge to understand, wait, what's the connection?
Exactly. And I tried to work out, well, okay, what works and what doesn't here. And I spoke to a lot of investors, a lot of people who listen to pitches in hours and hours of network meetings and events. And after doing this for the end of that program, somebody just casually said, hey, there's this thing called a business model canvas. Why don't you create a pitch canvas?
Yeah.
And I created the pitch canvas, which is being downloaded 50 times a day at the moment. And but in the early days, there was no kind of roadmap for how to pitch.
Yeah.
So I came up with that idea. And once I started doing that, it was interesting because, I wrote this book about Amsterdam. It's called Amsterdam, the Essence. And I thought, great title. But nobody really grabbed hold of it. It never really
took
caught on. As soon as I started talking about a pitch canvas, people knew what I was talking about. People in entrepreneurial world, they'd use the business model canvas. They were used to using canvases.
Because it's general, like Amsterdam's like, if it would have been like Amsterdam for vegans, then you got something like people can like, oh yeah, that's what it, but
Amsterdam, the Essence was a general thing, but the pitch canvas was really, like, people knew what it was before they'd seen it. And so it was it
is what it says on the tin, right?
Exactly.
It's like,
It's a one-pager, it guides you through the big 11 blocks of a startup pitch. Yeah. So I think, come back to your question, when did I start feeling, okay, this could be a business? It was when I realized that people start to hook onto this. Then at the end of the program, I invested like 150 hours of coaching, spending time, research for nothing, actually. We were burning my wife's savings. But I got voted most valuable mentor. Most memorable. I'd like to be most memorable. Most valuable mentor.
MVP.
Yeah. And then one corporate client, Michael Doyers, who's been a great supporter over the years, he said to the program, who coached these guys? Because I love the pitches. And they said, well, David did it. So luckily he came to me. And that was my first corporate client. And it started going from there. And once I started building, a few corporate clients, it started to be, okay, this could be a revenue generator.
Yeah.
But there was also, it had to be.
Yeah. And do you remember the first time you actually put a fee Do you remember the first time you had to come up with how much should I charge for this? Like,
yeah,
because that's a question we get all the time in our community, right? It's like, especially that when you're first starting off, is how did you come up with a number? Like, where did you pull the number out?
Well, there's a couple of views on this, on should you ever do things for free? Yeah. Should you always get paid? And I think to start off with, I do believe that doing things for free
100%.
Works. And then at a certain point it doesn't. And you've got to put value on what you do. But if you want to learn and want to deliver value,
and you haven't yet delivered results.
Exactly. Yeah. In that first program, a startup bootcamp, I didn't know what a startup pitch was. Yeah. So I put a lot of time in, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So that was a fair deal.
Sure.
I charged next to nothing. The second program, I started charging, I think, €47 per hour. And that felt scary.
Yeah.
Because it didn't, startups don't have much money. So 47 was already a big jump. But actually €47 is not sustainable, of course. It's almost nothing. So it's
a lot of hours.
It's a hell of a lot of hours. And and then I started doing workshops. I agonized over the pricing. But over the years, what I've discovered
Do you remember the first price you gave for the workshop?
I think I gave about €330 or something.
For a day?
For half a day.
Half a day, yeah.
Half a day.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's normally $595, but I'll give you a discount.
It's
$329. And I thought that would convince them.
We're all guilty as charged.
Little did I know, they probably would have paid like 5 times as much. Yeah. But I was just really keen to get some brands under my belt.
Sure.
And also,
Smart.
again, I've now delivered that workshop over 600 times, and it is, of course, very different to the first time. And every single time,
you learn
still today,
something.
I am tweaking that workshop every single time I do it.
Yeah.
And now Sheila, my business partner, is also giving workshops, doing a fantastic job. We are tweaking that workshop. Every time we do it, we're learning. Just yesterday, she sent me a slide saying, hey, maybe we should summarize with these points. We're just trying to make it so that people get it and they can do it.
Yeah. And I think, is your website called The 3 Best Minutes?
It's best3minutes.com.
Best3minutes.com, which is not a adult website. It could have sounded like a but it's a great website with some resources on helping people how to pitch. So I'm just really curious now, because a lot of people get intimidated at the idea of pitch. One of the biggest questions I get when I step off stage is, how do I become a better public speaker? How to become a more compelling speaker? And I've got a ton of questions for you.
Yes, please.
But one of them is, what has been the most common obstacle that you've seen get in the way of people fine-tuning their pitch?
Well, I think it's probably not fine-tuning their pitch, actually.
Just sticking to the same thing?
It's actually about work, and it's about feedback. So maybe it comes to you, but to the fine-tuning, what it tends to be is a very brainy thing. We sit and make the slides, sit in a corner, work, then present.
Yeah.
And I think the first thing to do is to get the pitch out there, even before you're really sure on what the story is. Start talking to people. Okay, this is the audience. I think what they're interested in is this. What do you think? Then get clear on what you want them to do. What do you want the audience to do? And that puts you out of your head and into their mind.
Sure.
So the starting point is to get out of your own head. The second thing is to then start getting things verbal. You can't think yourself into a great pitch. You have to talk yourself into a great pitch.
I like that.
So I think that's really the biggest barrier, where people are trying to think their way into it and write slides. And my recommendation is start talking. Say things out loud. Find out, does this word, this sentence, does this phrase make sense? And if it does, then say that. And if it doesn't, then say something different.
Sure.
You can do that by...
It's like a process of iteration, of constant kind of changing.
Absolutely.
Feedback loop.
That's definitely it. I think people think it's like a one-shot deal. Prepare,
deliver. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And actually, the ideal is that you don't expect yourself to think when you're up there.
Got it.
You get
connect
a lot of verbalization out in front of the pitch, before the pitch, so that when you're there, you're just concentrating on how to connect with those people and less about what you're going to say.
What does a pitch mean to you?
Well, a pitch for me, it's all about time pressure. It's time presentation. It's with a clear ask. So what do you want these people to do? And there's a personal edge. Because it's short, you've got to believe in the person. So the biggest challenge for a pitch is to combine those things. One is very rational. So getting clear the facts, getting clear what you need. But the non-rational part is so what type of person are you? And to jam all of that in 3 minutes, it's not easy, actually. It's the biggest challenge for people pitching.
Got that. You know, it's interesting. I don't think I've talked about this on podcast before, but I think it was last year. I know it was when my partner was pregnant. So 2 years ago, 2017, I was accepted on an accelerator that was organized called Entrepreneurial Spark.
Right.
That was co-founded by, funded by, don't want to get the bank wrong. I think it's NatWest.
Right.
Could be wrong. Could be totally wrong. Barclays, I don't know. Anyway, and so it was like the first. It was maybe it's the first cohort that I was part of that, and so I got in there, and there were a lot of traditional businesses,
right.
a lot in the founder startup kind of way.
Yes.
So there was dog treats, kind of a ordering box for dogs and insurance for dogs, or there was lots of kind of traditional. And here I was walking in with this kind of completely funky coaching kind of business.
Right.
And they took us through this kind of pitching, what they would call pitching, not canvas, but pitching formula, if you want.
Right.
And I just found it really hard.
Right.
I found and it almost, if I'm honest, after those 12 weeks, I almost felt like what I'm saying makes no sense.
Right.
Like my business actually it doesn't fit in a conventional kind of criteria. And I think a lot of people listening to this are people who may not have a conventional startup. Some of them, we've got a bunch of startup founders for sure, but some other people might be, life coaches or personal trainers or purpose coaches or mental health coaches, what have you. What would be a tip for them in terms of why they need to take pitching seriously, even if they're not looking for investment?
So I think the task of pitching is to build a story around what you're doing, and it's also to give people something that they can talk about. So you want to help people pass on your story, and in the end, nobody's got more time. Nobody wants things more complex. We're all looking for short and snappy and quick. That's the biggest trend. That's the biggest macro trend in the world is no time. So we need speed, and people can't pay attention to a lot of stuff. So I think for people who are coaches, who are not the typical, if you've got a parking app, there is a well-trodden path. If you're a person like you or me, or doing something a little different, and you're a coach, I still believe that a pitch for what you do is highly valuable. And the basics of a pitch are: what's the problem you solve? What's the solution you created? What's unique about that solution? And what does it look like?
And why are you the right person to do it? Is there something like that?
And I think then so these are the big rational things of problem, solution, what's unique, and even who is already buying.
Okay.
But then the more non-rational stuff is: why are you passionate about this? Why do you love to do this? What is it that gives you the biggest kick? And what if clients? What kind of kicks have they got? What drives them? And what do they love about what you're doing? And why does that make you happy? I think the balance of rational and non-rational tips, depending on where you're at.
Okay.
For example, if you are a scale-up, I've been coaching some teams who are pitching for tens of millions. And that's a really different discussion, because actually people are in the room to sign a check for 5 or 10 million.
They've got more than 3 minutes, right?
They got more than 3 minutes.
Tell me they've got more than 3 minutes.
60, 90-minute pitch. They have a 30-minute pitch and a 2-hour meeting. These people are not really interested in fancy stories about how you started.
They want numbers.
They want numbers. They want to know what you've achieved, etc. But that's a very different situation. If you're a personal one-man, you're a solopreneur, it is much more balanced towards you as a person. But the mistake some people make is only talk about that. Yeah. And I think I've interviewed so many people. I talked to so many people across so many different industries about what is it that makes a great pitch, and it always comes down to this one thing: give me the rational stuff, give me some stuff that makes me feel something. So there's that combination is the most important, and the balance depends on what type of business you have. Yeah.
What's the biggest mistake that people do when they pitch?
Not preparing and being over time. And people don't they have everyone's got a different idea of what time means. So I do exercises in my workshops which are time pressured. Everything has a clock running. So they start to feel, what does time mean for them? And in the end, time pressure fries our brain. So
adrenaline goes completely,
exactly.
a hippocampus gets overjacked.
Exactly. And what happens is when you're under time pressure, you think, okay, I got 3 minutes, so let's try and jam as much as possible in the 3 minutes. See, because if I tell them as much as possible, they'll understand more, right? Which it's actually counterintuitive. Less is definitely more.
Right.
A bit less content with more clarity will always win. But people go down that route of trying to jam the stuff in. But what happens is, once you miss one little thing, your brain says, I'm out of control here. We're going to run out of time.
Yeah.
And if you stumble or you make one error, then time pressure kicks in and you cannot deliver like you want to deliver.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something that I've seen a lot when I used to kind of mentor some of the pitches during the accelerator, which was around using too much jargon.
Yeah.
Being too general.
Yes.
And losing me at some point in the story.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is make sure that whether it's a pitch for a formal kind of fundraising round or if it's for explaining what you do to a social meeting, whatever, is to have the rational. So almost like speak to the monkey brain. I think Greg Carlson was the first one who taught me this. He said, when you pitch, speak to the zoo first.
Yes.
Because the monkey brain is the one that says, who the hell is this person?
Yeah.
Why does this matter?
Yeah.
Like all the kind of negative, that kind of reptile brain almost. And he says, speak to that first.
Yeah.
And then go into the emotion and kind of,
Exactly. So I coach people on the first 20 seconds, and I believe that people have got two basic questions. Pretty much what you've said: is this person professional, and do I want or need to know more? And if you can't trigger those two things,
hook it in the first 20 seconds,
then you're in trouble.
I love that.
So what happens sometimes is people say, for example, there's a lot of waste. There's huge waste in the world, and there's a load of world waste, and there's a big waste, and we don't do something, the world's going to go to hell.
Everyone knows that.
And then that carries on for about a minute, and we say, well, I get that, but what are you doing to solve that?
Yeah.
And I think you can frame those kind of stories by getting people in the first 20 seconds. So tell them, this is who we are, this is what we do, and if you've had one piece of success, and we're already helping X customers to do something. That talks to that monkey brain. It says, this is what it's all about.
It's validated,
We're professional because we've made a plan to tell you what we're doing. Yeah. And the people are already taking this up. Then that kind of buys you time to tell a story. So I think then you can go into, so there's a big world waste problem. And then we're coming along with them on the story. So I think framing that story and telling people, why am I telling you this? It's really critical in those first 20 seconds.
It reminds me a little bit of like TEDx or TED Talks.
Yes.
When your first line is meant to be your hook. Yeah. Some of my favorite ones is, I was raised by two lesbians on a mountain. Yeah. Or it was like, or I became, that's one of them is like, I'm gonna butcher it, but something like, I became masterful getting kicked out of foster homes. Yeah. It's like within those first seconds, you're kind of like, I'm there. What's one of your favorite kind of hooks that you've heard or come across that?
That's a good question. There's one that I use in my workshops where it was a startup that said, anything, any place, anytime, why wait? Now, if you think about that statement, that is so in line with the world today. It is what people want. Anything, any place, anytime. Why wait? Yeah. So not only do I get anything I want, any place, anytime, I don't have to wait. That is an amazing hook. Yeah. Because it gives you a promise. It gives you a promise in the first word, in the first sentence. So a lot of pitches are starting with I'm really happy to be here. Sure. Thanks for arranging this event. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Actually, I was in a pitch competition once. I once worked for a startup for a little while. I was in a pitch competition.
Is it Pitchy?
Actually, no. Pitchy is my current startup. Okay. This was another startup called Quiver. Actually, it lasted 2.5 months. Okay. Less said, the better. And but I was in a pitch competition. It was Dell for Entrepreneurs. Yeah. And there was a big prize, of $75,000. And cool. Dell for Entrepreneurs. That's a good competition. Yeah. And it was a 2-minute pitch, semi-final. There were 17 teams, 8 didn't finish on time. And one guy started almost like I described, like, I'm really happy to be here, thanks for the location, thanks for Dell for organising this great event. After 25 seconds, he looks at his watch and he said, oh, it's a 2-minute pitch. I better start up, hadn't I? I better hurry up. And I was sitting at the back like...
You almost want to coach them.
Which bit of 2 minutes was not clear, Yeah. There was even a clock ticking. So... Yeah.
So get straight into it. I say that all the time for talks.
And I think the TEDx thing is really interesting because TEDx, I've coached a lot of TEDx speakers, over 25 speakers, and I've been on 4 different programs, and I noticed that when they're looking for speakers, they have one specific thing. So the catch line for TEDx is ideas worth spreading. But when they're looking for a speaker, they say, what's your idea worth spreading? What's your one idea? And that idea is expressed in that opening sentence. Yes. And I'm a big believer in this. I also have my own approach, which is one idea broken into 3 pieces. I think each big idea can be broken into 3 big components. So one big idea and then 3 subparts. But, in the end, you want to communicate as quickly as possible. What is the big idea here? Because everyone's listening to a pitch as if it's a concept, and they want to know what's the value here.
Yeah, it's the hook. It's like it was very surprising. Like, I often get contacted on Instagram and sending me DMs and stuff around. Yeah. Oh, I want to give a TEDx talk. How do I give a TEDx talk? So I created a few resources over it because I just got so many times the same questions.
Create a web page.
Yeah, and exactly right. And then the first thing I kind of often say is, most people who want to give a TEDx talk want to give a TEDx talk for the wrong reasons. Yeah. I was one of them. Right. I actually, when I got picked by the organizers, I actually wrote back to them and said, look, I've realized that actually I wanted to do this for the wrong reasons. Right. It was all about me, building my brand, trying to get famous, trying to get all this stuff. It wasn't about serving. So I apologize. Let me change my talk.
Yes.
Cool. The other thing that I don't know if you can relate to this, but the other thing is, you don't have an idea. You've got a vague message. Right. Like, exercise is good for you. Right. Or, whatever it is. And you can go, that's not an idea. Yeah. Or, what's your twist on that? And so there seems to be, I don't know if it's the same thing in Amsterdam, but there seems to be this craze that everyone wants to give a TEDx talk. Yeah. It's kind of almost like the rite of passage in our industry of speakers and coaches and founders. If you haven't given a TEDx talk, you haven't done anything worth whatever it is. What would be a tip for people who are listening to this and they've got this hunger inside of them for whatever reason to give a TEDx talk, and they could be sitting in front of you right now, actually they are listening to you now. What do you want to tell them?
Well, I think there's one good example. I coached somebody who was talking about children's dreams, and she gave a TEDx talk about children's dreams. But the way she got that talk is that she'd been blogging about that for a long period, and this blog had built up a following. And at a certain moment, one of the organizers found her. And that's really how it works. They have a kind of a board of people who are going out there just looking for interesting stuff. And there's normally one person who is driving it, who's very influential, but they don't really respond to people saying, "Can I do a TED talk?"
I get that. Yeah.
What they do is they respond to people who have got interesting ideas, who are building a following, who are building something that is gathering pace. And it's not necessarily that you need 1 million people to be following your blog, but if you've got an idea, just the first thing that it's going to be communicated in is a TEDx talk. That's pretty unlikely, actually. Normally, people have got a formed idea, or they're forming an idea by communicating it with an audience and building an audience. And I'm also a person who wants to give a TEDx talk.
What would it be about?
It's about, why don't we teach young people public speaking before they become terrified of it?
I love that.
This is
so true.
And this is a topic because I face people every day who are totally overwhelmed.
I get that. That too.
How can that be? If we can't count, we teach kids maths because that's important in our lives. We have to do it really a lot. We teach kids how to play music. But we don't teach them. So actually, the process is the same as music. If you give a kid a guitar, they can play it and they can make some noise, but it won't be very good. And at a certain moment, someone will say, "Look, can you stop that? Because it's horrible." And that is the same with presenting. We don't get trained how to do this. I've asked hundreds and hundreds of people from all kinds of countries, and the one exception is America, by the way, that they train their kids to do this.
Because they almost have like debate societies, don't they? Like from an early age, they have like all these kind of different activities that they can take part in.
Americans are brilliant at speaking in front of an audience. The rest of us, we're up against it because we don't get taught how to do it. And so what happens is you get your first presentation. Someone sends you the template. You fill in the bullet points. You stand up and start speaking, and afterwards someone says, "This was terrible." It's the same as the kid with the guitar, and so we immediately find out that we're awful at this. Yeah. But that's not our fault because we're not taught, we're not given any tools. And I quite often hear people say, "Well, we did get feedback on presentation. We did have to make presentations, but we did get feedback." And then I ask, "Well, what balance was about negative and positive?" And it's always negative. Yeah. All of it telling 100%. You what you did wrong.
100%. Even now, still to this day, when I'm running workshops, boot camps, even going to companies, I try and, in a nutshell, try and teach people how to give feedback on the fly. Because otherwise, it's just naturally going, "That was confusing. That was exactly. Shit. You lost me there." And it's just going, "What? No. Okay. They call it. We call it back in the corporate world. We used to call it the shit sandwich. When you give feedback, it's like, "David, I really enjoyed you coming here on time." Yes. And then you go, and then at the end, but it's great to have you here.
Yeah.
You know, and so all that was also, but I think it's a great topic. I think it's,
well, what I do is in my workshops, I have a 4-step formula, which is think it through, write it down, say it out loud, get feedback.
Boom.
And what most people do is think it through, write it down, and that's making the slides.
Yeah.
That's making the slides, and then we speak.
Yeah.
But that's a formula really for failure, actually, because what we think in our head will sound good. It doesn't work when you speak. Yeah. If we've never said it out loud, it doesn't work. So the third thing is to say it out loud. Just saying it to the cat will make it better.
Yeah.
You know, saying it to when my kids were really young, they're 6 and 4 now. But when they were babies, I would sometimes pitch to them, and they didn't respond too much, but they didn't give much feedback. But just saying it out loud, you start to find words. You realise, hang on, that's not the phrase I would use. If I was talking to a friend over coffee, I wouldn't say execute. I'd say I'm going to make it happen.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, David. I've been banging on about this. Stop writing like it's a brochure and marketing material. Yeah. You don't write. You don't talk the same way that you write. No. And so one of my tips I always say to people, if that's challenging, talk and record yourself. Yes. And then transcribe it.
Exactly.
And you're going to see that it's a completely different ballgame than if you went, indeed, furthermore, we would like to point to, no one talks like that.
No. If you talk to a friend over a coffee like that, they think you're nuts. Yeah. Right? It's just, it doesn't work that way. And so there's the third step is really saying things out loud. But the fourth step is getting feedback. Mm-hmm. But what I've recently started giving people is the 3 steps for getting the feedback, which is to ask people what stood out most. Mm-hmm. So what are you most likely to remember? What caught your attention? Mm-hmm. What surprised you? Then what's the one big thing that you didn't understand?
Yes.
So what was unclear? Yeah. And then give those people a chance to say something in a different way so that you do understand. Yeah. And the third one is one friendly piece of advice for making it better. And in my workshops, I really make a thing about friendly because you're not here to break people down.
It's a growing feed. Yeah.
You're looking to build people up.
Yeah.
And because we're not professional feedback givers. And, if you ask, can you give me feedback? Exactly what you describe. either people will say, oh, it was nice.
Yeah. And
which you can't do anything with. Or they'll think, oh, crikey, I've got to say something. Well,
and the Dutch are so direct.
Oh, very direct.
The Dutch and the Israelis, I find, are the two most direct kind of cultures I've come across.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm sure they must be like, that was rubbish.
Yeah, and it's it's actually it's built in the culture not to overbuild people in the Netherlands. I've been living there 21 years. I love that directness, and it's not rudeness. It is simply,
you know where you stand.
Yeah, and Dutch people find it odd if you don't give your opinion. They find it rude not to give
I know. I've got
opinion.
Dutch friends, and they're like, why would you not say if you don't want to go to the restaurant? Why would you? Especially the Brits. I think
why would
Brits,
you say? Yeah, well,
I mean, why not?
Let me come back to you. They'll say, no, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks. That was a bit impolite, but now I know where you stand.
But you got used to it, right?
Oh, very much so, and I love it. I love the ability to put things on the table and discuss.
Do you do that now? Do you find yourself to be more direct as a result of being there 20 years?
You can take the Brit out of Britain, but you can't take Britain out of the Brit. I can tell you, finally, I'm a little bit in between. I think one of my X factors as a coach is, first I built a methodology. I built a set of steps. So I think that's one of the things to do as a coach, to build a set of steps.
Unpack your IP, as Taki Moore says.
Exactly, and make it into something that people can get their fingernails on and work through. Mm-hmm. But secondly, when it's about face-to-face coaching or get questions or I'm supporting people, there is that British niceness that is hard.
But it's so needed, though, David.
Yeah.
So needed.
Yeah, and the super critical thing, I just don't think it works. I know people who have been to pitch coach and say, yeah, this guy took my pitch to pieces. And I think, well, is that really what you want?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I go around saying, oh, everything's fine.
I get that.
But what I do is tell people, this is what you're doing right. And then here's what we can change.
Yeah.
Here's why we might change it. Here's how you can think about this and find your story. And I've found that people are much more open when they know what they're doing right.
But it's basic stuff, and I'm really glad that we're connecting today and talking, because it's refreshing to hear someone's got very similar perspectives and stuff that I've been going on about, and you feel like you're alone, but actually you realize that lots of other people. The way that I kind of describe it, it's like a flower that's just sprouting. Yeah. It's just starting. And so if you go and just crush that when it hasn't even had time to get some air or a little bit of sunlight, then it will not be. Yeah, it's finished. And I've seen spirits crushed, like in front of me, just by being. And I have no idea. I don't know if because the person was trying to be like kind of hard knocks, and I don't know what it was. But I find that if you go, and it's not about lying, and it's not about pretending like there's not something wrong. It's about, I'm saying this so I can grow you.
Yeah.
I always say this, from what place are you coming from?
Exactly. It's all about the intention.
Huh? That's it. Are you trying to grow and serve, or are you trying to break and destroy?
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm totally on the side of the growing. You know, this is fragile stuff. People standing in front of an audience is people's biggest fear. Yeah. And
about something they care.
Yeah, and I take it really seriously. You know, when I worked in the corporate world, I took being a manager seriously because I'd experienced what it's like to have a bad manager and have a manager that didn't treat you like a person who deserves respect. So I took it so seriously because I thought I can have an impact on people's daily lives.
Sure.
So if I'm a bad manager, this will have a bad impact. So if I'm a good manager, I have to do everything that I can to be a good manager. And it's the same with this. You know, I can have a really positive impact, but I can also have a really negative impact on people's lives if I get it wrong. So take it extremely seriously, how to help people grow and shine at the moment that they need to.
Have you come across, without naming, but have you come across teams that are uncoachable, that you're just trying your best and it seems like it doesn't get through? And
I want to say no. I have had a couple of people who, I think that what I mean by that, so the word uncoachable has two angles. Cool. Sometimes people are just not very good at it. I think everybody can make a good professional pitch. I think it's possible.
With enough preparation, enough work.
Yeah. If you're ready to do the work, every single person can do it. And of course, people's character is a bit different. Some people are more like, ta-da, and they enjoy it and so on. But if you put in the work, you can stand in front of an audience and make a good, solid professional pitch, which will be much, much better than you could do. But every now and again, I've come across some people who just don't want to know. They say, yeah, well, what I think is the right way. And I think, well, that's okay. I've coached thousands of people, 850 startups, 12,000 people, 27 countries. I've done this workshop 600 times. But if you know better, it's fine. Go ahead. But your job is to do what you do. The only single thing that I do is help people pitch. Yeah. The only thing I do day and night is in my work is think about how to help people do that better. And I talk to people, hear what they think about pitches. I listen to pitches and coach people. That's it. So, if someone doesn't want to hear, that I would say is the uncoachable part. Got it. But in terms of skills, ability, everybody's coachable.
That's really cool. Have you ever sat in an audience and seen someone who you thought would have an amazing, compelling pitch, but for some reason it just didn't convert?
Yes.
Yeah. How does that feel?
Awful, and I know exactly why it happened.
Okay.
This was a really classic example of something people have a lot. So this was a person who was very energetic, very enthusiastic. They were going to present in front of 300 people at a big event, a startup final. And about 2 hours before the pitch, it was a big event, he did a run-through with me. It was perfect, really perfect. It was energetic, it was his story, it was him, it was great. I don't know what happened, but between that moment and when he stood on stage, he must have had a crisis of confidence or something, but he went on stage with some notes. Now, he didn't need those notes. He knew this pitch, probably 99%. Nobody knows the pitch 100%. Sure. He knew it 99%, but that 1% caused him to take his notes. And what happened is he said, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen."
Oh, no.
And
for people who can't see this, David is holding his hands up and looking like he's looking at notes.
Yeah, he was looking down at his notes and referring to the note. Now, the reason he had that is because he thought, if I forget something, I'll have my notes and that will help me. But the problem is when you've got that in front of you, the stress of being in front of the audience causes you to look for comfort. The comfort is in the notes.
You're going to take it.
And you take it. So even if you know your pitch 90%, you think, I'll just put the presenter notes in. It's a bad move because what happens is you get focused on the notes. Yeah. So that was a classic example where it could have gone
Remove the safety net, people.
But just be... in the end, they don't know what you're planning to say.
That is so true. And people don't know what it's meant to sound like.
They don't know what the script is.
Yeah.
And if you miss something, we think, oh no, but if I miss one thing, they won't get it. But they won't get it anyway. They'll get something. Sure. They'll understand some things about your business in 3 minutes. Yeah. They won't understand if you have 20 minutes.
Right.
So what they'll understand is enough to feel, is there something interesting here? Is this person interesting?
Do I want to continue the conversation?
Yeah, is this person engaged with the right customers? Have they achieved something? Are they full on? Are they into this? Do they mean what they say? And if yes, they will follow that up. And so the getting every single piece of content out there is not so essential. So it's really a pity, because I thought that guy had a fabulous way of pitching, and it didn't come across on the day.
Got that. No, I love that. There's also I'm interested to hear this. Do you find that actually what investors or people are looking for is an opportunity to be, that sounds interesting, let me continue that conversation? Because then I'm guessing you've got another pitch, which is, I've just got your attention now for the 3 minutes, now the real work starts.
So I have interesting conversations with some investors who are being pitched all the time. One or two have said, the pitch is dead. We all know pitching is dead, and I think, well, that's not what I see. But I know why they say it. Well, why they say it is because all they do is they hear pitches, and people are pitching at them all the time. So if you're an investor, someone says, "You're an investor, let me tell you about my," and they'll jump into it. So they're just a bit sick of
without permission.
Exactly. Nevertheless, they need a filter. They need a funnel of how do you find out whether there are entrepreneurs out there who have got something interesting. And the way they do that is they hear pitches. So a pitch is an opportunity to grab people's attention. So I also hear investors who say, I'm a bit tired of pitching, but they go to pitch events all the time. So it's definitely a thing that they are looking for. And this is, for typical investor pitches, but it's also if you go to a network event and you get an opportunity to talk for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, it's the same thing. You're not looking to convince anybody of buy this product. You're looking to convince people that, hey, please engage with me. I think I've got value for you. Maybe we can do something together. And that's, I think, what an investor's looking for. The other thing an investor says to me is a guy called Frank Appledorn from Arches Capital. He said that what they're looking for is, can you convince other people? Not just can you convince me, but can you convince the world?
People in your vision and what you're trying to do and engage? And
exactly that. Can you bring people along with you? Can you get them to be part of your movement? Can you get them to feel the energy of what you feel around what you're doing?
So this is a question. This is something that I've been struggling with recently, right? So I've been kind of working on a side project. And one of it kind of stemmed off when I go and give talks into organizations. One of the criteria I have is I speak to different employees within the organization,
right? Because
I want to make sure that I get an understanding of what's really happening as opposed to what the leadership and maybe just the executives are telling me.
Yes.
And so while I was going through this process, I'd sit down with half an hour with people and just hear them out, hear they're doing, and they'd tell me this is the most valuable half hour I've had, pretty much all year. And I thought, this is crazy.
Yeah.
They're just speaking to someone who's just curious and interested. Yes. And so then, I've got some friends running an organization called Sanctus, the mental health startup. It's an amazing organization. Check them out. And they're focused very much on mental health. So they go into organization and they provide a mental health coach for companies for their staff to have an all-round kind of conversation.
Yeah.
And so I've been having conversations with different HR people, and they all have the same need. They want to have more engaged workforce. They want their people to feel happy. They want people to feel proud with their work. And so I've kind of this idea that I have, and I've been trying to convey them, is to say, look, if you want your people to overachieve, they need to feel overappreciated.
Right.
And the way you do that is to provide them with a personal coach, because over the next 10 years, having a personal development program along with your professional development program will become standard.
Right.
So new generation will come in and say, basically, you have a life coaching program. I mean, that's kind of, I can see this coming. And so when I say that, right, so I've got all this passion and I can see it, I'm enthusiastic. And they'll go, oh yeah, but we have a well-being day once a year. where we do this, we do yoga and a bit of coaching. So many people could probably relate to a similar story than this. What would be some advice that you'd have for me in this situation around how do you actually, what am I doing wrong? Does that make sense?
Yeah, what are we doing wrong? I think it's actually, firstly, it is about finding the timing, finding the right clients. I do think the problem and the solution, quantifying the problem. How what are they actually missing out on?
Yeah.
What, are they missing out?
It's like millions. It's costing like I've got a deck where I kind of walk through. It's like literally millions.
Yes. So that's really different. And if you can quantify what the problem is, so just for example, if you say to people, we have a lot of consultants around here. They're all using data systems, and we need to convert from 6 to 1. Nobody's convinced. Why would you do it?
Yeah.
We need 500,000 to do this. Nobody would do it. However, if you say, we've got 6 data systems, we need to turn it into 1. Why? Because we've got 200 consultants, and every week they spend 3 hours unifying the data from these different 6 systems into reports. If we have this one system, we will save ourselves X number of hours. I haven't done the maths. X number of hours, which at an hourly rate is X, is Y amount of money. This is costing us 100 grand a week. Now, at that moment, I think people are starting to listen, because in the end, it comes down to bottom line.
Yeah.
Then, again, it's this rational and non-rational.
Yeah.
That's the hard facts. Then there is the soft side of it. You know, what your experience of talking with people, the engagement that you get as a result of actually listening to people. And if you can get some, I think having actual quotes from real people. Yeah. And of course, the danger with that is a little bit like people say, it was great having a life coach. I really recommend Mark's program. You know, you got to ask questions that cause people to say things that they really care about, or they actually mean. But I think real
maybe you use a guinea pig. You know, I was talking to David about this, and he was like, just get yourself a guinea pig.
Yes.
Get a company who's going to buy into it.
Yeah.
Do whatever you need to get them under the belt.
And get a result.
Get results.
And get a result.
Yeah.
And having a proven path, especially for companies who are a little bit conservative, you know, which most companies are for good reasons. I think having a proven path will help them understand and quantifying the value in both rational and non-rational terms.
So what I'm hearing a lot from this conversation is, if people are thinking about launching something or trying something, you want to validate the value first.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah, make sure you get out there, that you know what you do actually is worthwhile. Even if it's, work for free, do the research.
Yes.
Grow, learn, and then once you're confident in what you do, start getting out that. Actually, even before you're confident, start sharing, pitching.
Definitely.
Get some feedback, readjust.
Yeah.
And then hopefully win the day.
Yeah, especially for coaches and people who are solopreneurs. They're looking to build a business. Maybe they've had a corporate career or they're starting for themselves. I really think going to network events, talking about what you do, talking about the value you're bringing, it's low risk. You can find out whether it makes sense to people, whether it resonates with people, and there's no harm done.
Yeah.
You go to a network event, you make a mess of it. So
100%.
what? You know, whereas you'll get yourself closer. And then getting some test clients and just being incredibly focused on what works for these people.
Yeah. Love that. So you wrote a book, Pitch to Win.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was the experience like of putting that in the world?
Well, luckily I've written a few books before. The first book I wrote, it was just a horrible experience, really painful. It was just, I did 25 interviews, which was fun, having coffee with interesting people.
Sure.
And then writing. And it was just horrible. But now I've done that process a few times. Somehow, mentally, it feels like, okay, I know the beginning, middle, and end of this. So you know the volume of work, and you know you can do it. So I enjoyed that. And actually, it's a little bit, there's an interesting process, because this was almost written before it was written. I pretty much translated everything that I've learned in the last 5-6 years from talking to people who listen to pitches and coaching people who give pitches. And there were many, many things which were just things that I've said. And most of what was written was just translating what I've already said in the past. And there was a bit of extra research, a few extra little bits and pieces. But in the end, it was all based on actual experience with real people who have been pitching. And then some interviews with people who listen to pitches.
Love it. Yeah. So the book, if people listening, you buy the book if you want to learn how to become a better storyteller. If you want to share your ideas, because I love you said, when you give people ideas a voice.
Yes.
Right? And so, pitch the book.
Yeah. That's an interesting one.
Don't put you on the spot.
Okay, well, this is 15,000 hours of work in 200 pages. And most people find it really difficult to tell their story in a short time pressure pitch. And what I've done is given people a set of steps that they can follow. It's a set of things that real people can do. And this is not theory about how to make a great pitch. This is why it matters. So for just as an example, why does it matter to have a great opening? And that's explained.
Sure.
So how would you do it? What does it look like?
Yeah.
What would a great opening look like? And then what would be a set of steps that you can take to prepare your great opening? And that's a basic pattern that I've integrated into the book. Cool. The other thing is, okay, but what does it look like? So there's QR codes in the book which take you to examples of startups making pitches.
Okay.
So there are about 50 clips of various different aspects of pitching, so that if you still don't know what to do, have a look at somebody doing it.
Cool.
And try and get inspired.
And people can buy it on Amazon, usual suspects.
Amazon is the usual places. Yeah. There's also an audiobook which I'm just waiting to come out on Audible.
Cool.
But,
that's
I recorded
exciting.
That was my...
How many hours?
The total, it's not so long. It's about 4.5 hours, 5
okay,
hours.
Still, yeah.
It's a good length.
Did you do it in one go, or did you do it in different?
I did it in 3 sessions.
Okay.
It was. I enjoyed it. I love doing that stuff.
You've got a great voice, David. You've got a really great voice for broadcasting. When I was looking at your talks, I just thought you've got a very kind of warm, grounded voice. So I could imagine the audiobook's going to be, just as great.
Also, my wife is a trained voice actor, and
she
trained
right?
me. So I also use some of those things in my training and also in the audiobook.
Yeah, that's beautiful. By the time this comes out, the Impact Accelerator that I've just created is going to be coming out. And one of the biggest questions I get is the fear of public speaking.
Yes.
What would you want to tell people listening to this? The gift that comes with finding the courage to speak more publicly about your ideas.
Well, the gift that comes is just really massive. It's just really massive. I can't express how much it matters to me, because it has made all the difference in my own life. I think. I don't think I was particularly great at sales or marketing. I was pretty good with people, but I was pretty good at presentation. And any time there was a workshop or group work and somebody had to present the findings, I'd always say, "Oh, I'll do it." And that helped me so much. But just articulating, what do you think? What do you believe? What do you stand for? And what are you working on? It's such a value. Then coming to this accelerator, it's doing the work to share that story is just a great opportunity to bring people along with you. People are attracted to great speaking, and they listen a bit more to people who can present well, and that's a brutal fact. So it's worth developing that skill. And I think especially for purpose-driven startups, if you've really got a product. Would Dropbox really have needed a charismatic speaker to sell it? Maybe not. It was just a dynamically brilliant product with a great growth engine in it. If you're trying to make something that is more purpose focused, you're going to need to bring people along, and they need that emotion, they need that personal connection. I think public speaking is a great way to build that.
Love that. Before I ask you my final questions, I just want to acknowledge you and say thank you for doing the work that you do. It's been a pleasure kind of researching before this interview and looking at your different talks. There's lots of resources online that people go and check out on YouTube and your website. But more than that, I think there's something that I see a kindred spirit in you, which is you're helping people find their voice. Yeah. And to actually have the courage to make sense of it so they can go out and convey something that matters.
Yeah, it's great that you get that, because that's exactly the thing.
Yeah, and I think by doing that, it's like, what if the only thing that was standing between you and creating a movement was just becoming a better public speaker and doing it under 3 minutes? And that's where you come in and you do that. So
absolutely.
I think that's really cool. So I just want to say thanks on behalf of the hundreds of startups and the millions of euros that you helped fundraise. Yeah. Through your coaching, I just want to say a genuine, hats off. That's awesome.
Thanks.
What's one thing most people don't know about you?
Let's see. I turned down a place at Oxford University once. I got offered a place to study Chinese back in 1986. And I made a decision between applying, and I'd spent 2 years applying, and I'd put everything into it. But at a certain moment, I thought, actually, I don't want this wind behind my back. I want to have to break through the wind myself, or go through whatever it takes. And I don't know where that comes from, but there was definitely a feeling like this is an unfair advantage.
Really?
And I'm not sure that I want to take that unfair advantage.
Interesting.
I want to work on this myself. And that has been slightly belligerent. But when it came to the crossroads, Canon was moving my job to England. The easy thing to do was to move. There were few people, as a third of the people were moving, 230 jobs. I had an opportunity to get, a next step up, a bigger career, more money, and that would have been a real accelerator financially. But as a person, it was totally the wrong thing to do. And I just felt that same thing with that choice in Oxford. So I made the decision. I then went to London School of Oriental and African Studies and quit after 4 months because I couldn't do it. It was just really, really difficult. Yeah. So I had this moment of glory, like I'm turning down Oxford, and within 4 months I failed horribly, really badly. It was very public and very open for me and very raw, but it was a great experience because it made me realize, you want to work through stuff, you're going to have to, and that really made me very resilient. I
love
think.
That.
Yeah,
very cool. If I could give you a billboard on Piccadilly Circus, do you still remember Piccadilly Circus in London? Yeah, like the big digital board, and you could have a message written across it that everyone walking in front of it would read. What would that message be?
To achieve great things, it's a quote, but it's one that's lived with me for a very long time. To achieve great things, you must not only act but also dream, not only plan but also believe. And I think that is, again, this rational, non-rational. You need to get yourself organized, but keep dreaming about where you're going, because that is the stuff that gives you something different. That is the difference between being, a half-decent product or a half-decent coach or a half-decent something, or having a real impact on people, whatever that impact might be. Because that combination of getting organized but dreaming and believing it is dynamite. That's where the power is.
The yin and the yang.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Final question. What does being unconventional mean to you?
Making choices that don't always make sense. and sometimes you don't know why you make them. It's as much a gut feel as anything else.
Yeah. Love that. David, it's been a genuine pleasure. I have a feeling that our paths will cross again, that we'll get to collaborate and partner on something. Where can people find you? Where do you hang out most online? Where's the best place to get in touch with you if there are people interested in working with you or bringing you in?
So my website is best3minutes.com. So that's best3minutes.com. And I'm very present on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So it's easy to find me on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Those are the two best places.
Yeah. Fantastic. David, genuine pleasure.
Thank
you so much for coming.
I enjoyed it.